Excited?
Format.
Nine.
Where it can't be.
Well done. Very close. That's how you do
I
it.
did.
Yeah.
And that was your picture, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of her.
It might have
And
been
I love it when
somebody
people
else.
help.
She put my words together.
I asked her to
Awesome.
Yeah.
text it to me or send it, so she sent me the picture. But
Hi.
but I was really bad.
Sit here, good to hear. I'm doing well as well, actually.
Me too. We're no name today.
No name, I'm not there.
You guys will have to trust your memory.
So I'm gonna ask
We'll
us,
do that.
ask
We'll
us,
do that.
Huh?
ask us to get ready for the meeting. I'm gonna call it to order in about 1 more minute. If you got your cell phone, put them on mute or vibrate.
No, I left it in my folder.
Oh.
Not at all. Right.
Good to have. That's good. So let's call the meeting to order and let's do a roll call of the board members. So you want to call them out, Joe? Sure. Alyssa Harmon,
Here.
Laura Montagna. Absent, excused in Italy. I see Steve Madroni.
Present. I'm present for the time being.
Tim Doty. Here. Allison Flynn. Allison Tans, excused. Debbie Hartridge.
Here.
Lee Broderick, excused. Jeanette Kellerman.
Here.
Vernon Price. Present. Gardner Carlson. Here. Oscar DeWong.
Mobione. Can you check? Here, present.
Seems like we have a quorum. Is that correct, Joe? Yep. All right, then, thank you. We'll proceed. And it's time for us to introduce our staff. Why don't we go staff in the room and then we'll go on to Zoom? Yeah, would you start?
Hi, Emmy Boxer Rogers. I'm the behavioral health director.
Just kind of go around the room?
Leah Nagy, mental health, liaison, family.
Paul Bugnacki, Deputy Director of Behavioral Health.
Jeremy Nelson, Deputy Director over Children's Behavioral Health.
And in the back?
Kat Sano, analyst budget.
Okay.
Laurel Johnson, I'm an analyst in DHHS admin.
I just don't have my phone, sorry.
That's all right. I remember you. All right, let's go with, Steve, you have your hand up. I want to do introductions of staff. You want to go ahead and say what you need to say?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Well, as you know, remote nowadays is something you have to actually speak to if you're going to be a voting member, but it sounds like, do you have a quorum without me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'm not going to use up I only get two opportunities to be remote and actually vote. I'll just be a willing listener, participant, but not a voting member today, if that's okay.
That's fine. I'll see if we can give you a permanent excuse. Because you're appointed by the board and I think you're important.
Well, I try to be here every time I can, but scheduling difficulty again today. Thank you.
Understand. Let's go with staff online there. Why don't we start with you, Jack?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Jack Brazil, Deputy Director for Behavioral Health.
Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy Stark. I'm the Legislative Manager for DHHS.
Oh, no, you're not on staff. You are on staff. Okay, just introduce yourself. Can you hear me, Kelly?
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear my name. I'm Kelly Schwartz. I'm the public guardian.
Thank you. Kristen?
Hi, Kristen Smith. I'm a senior health education specialist for suicide and violence prevention over in public health.
Thank you. Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Wolf, Legislative Analyst with DHHS. Good to see you.
And Jeremiah? I can't get your first name. Jermaine?
Oh, hi, just a community member, Jermaine Brubaker, just
Okay.
tuning in.
Okay, so I want to make sure we have all the staff. And all the staff introduced. So let's go to the public. We're welcome you and glad that you're here with us. So this is the time for you just to introduce yourself. We'll have a time later on for public comments. So if you want to use your name, you can. If you don't have to.
Hi, I'm Katie Wilson, Dr. Wilson. I'm just a psychiatrist in the community.
All right, thank you. Any other members of the public here? All right, then we will move on. Any adjustments to our agenda in terms of when we do things? Emmy needs to leave a little early, so we won't do anything important after she leaves. So this is an opportunity for public comment. We're glad that you're here. We want to hear from the public, and this is your comment. We hope you can focus in on what we do in the behavioral health and mental health. And we give you 3 minutes, and we ask you to speak to us in a respectful manner. So if you'd like to speak at this time, please do. Katie?
Well, I do, but I was going to wait and see if anybody else was interested since I don't want to dominate.
Thank you. Jermaine, any comments?
Nope, just observing today. Thanks.
Okay. Maribeth, I don't know you. Are you a member of the public?
Good afternoon, Chairman. My name is Maribeth Madsen. I'm the competency trainer at Humboldt JBCT, and my supervisor invited me after receiving an invitation from Katie Wilson, Dr. Wilson.
Great, thank you. Glad that you're here. Any comments at this time, Maribeth?
No comments. I'm learning a lot about the community here in Humboldt County. I've been here about 3 years and a social worker and just looking to understand the context of my role. So.
Oh, wait, great. We'll have another opportunity for public comments. After our discussion item on SB 43 and after the letter that we're going to have on a motion about being sent to the Board of Supervisors. So
if all the rest of the public is done, I did want to make my quick comment.
Okay.
So, Tim, I just have a quick comment when Katie's done.
Okay.
Okay, well, I was just going to want to let everyone know that NAMI is having a very important webinar today at 3:30 p.m. And it specifically is being put out by the governor and NAMI California and DHCS, the Department of Health Care Services in California. And these specific things that they're talking about are upcoming changes in Mental Health Services Act funding. So I was thinking that if anybody in the room that doesn't already know about the webinar and is involved with MHSA, they should want to attend that meeting. And I did try to email that to Joe, Tim, and Tim, the actual announcement. So I guess we cannot put it in the chat function, but if anybody wants that post, they can email me or Tim or Joe, and we all have the actual meeting webinar. It's like, an email, you just click on the the thing. And the interesting thing, and the reason I'm bringing it up, and it's really amazing timing, I just received this yesterday from NAMI, California. So, and I think that it's ties in very closely with the SB 43 discussion. And also just, I think, in case anyone who's working on the MHSA funding projects, you know, since the new plan, the 3-year plan is, I think it might even be done with being worked on, but I have a feeling that the state is going to be making some big changes and that it's going to affect those the MHSA plan. So I recommend that anyone interested in that be sure to attend.
Thanks, Katie. Leah?
I just wanted to mention, I think some of you knew, City of Arcata did a town hall meeting on homelessness, and it was well received. A lot of people were there. They're gonna do another one in September on Eureka. Did I say Arcata? Oh my God, I'm sorry. City of Eureka, thanks, Deb. Okay. Yeah, Eureka did it. Yeah, no, and then they're gonna do one in September on substance abuse. It's funny, all these town hall meetings revolve around homeless, substance abuse, and mental illness. So every time all that comes up. So the date will be announced, and I think Jacob will send it to Joe. If not, I'm looking forward to Joe. But they're very interesting to hear how the community feels and get information about what's going on. And I was surprised to hear that the city of Eureka has a lot of lots that they're trying to put affordable housing on. The city planner for Eureka was in that meeting, and I learned a lot about what Eureka's doing. So it was helpful. Just
Good.
wanted you guys to know.
Thank you. And we have another member of the public here. Do you want to introduce yourself or remain unnamed?
I'm Edith Ritchie of the NAMI board.
Glad to have you with us. Any comments? Do you want to wait for wait for further action items?
Thank you.
Oh, and we want to welcome Connie.
Thank you.
Glad to have you with us. So we'll begin with the discussion of SB 43. My understanding, Nancy, you're going to lead us on the information at this time, correct?
Sure, I'm sharing my screen right now. Can everyone see it? I'm sorry, can you see the, yeah, okay. How about the folks in the room? Can you all see it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There are also 2 paper copies in the room for anyone who may find that more accessible than a screen display. And again, I'm Nancy Stark. I'm the legislative manager for DHHS, and we're here to talk about Senate Bill 43. So I'll go ahead and get started if that's all right. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so let's talk about existing law. Existing law, the Lantrum and Petrus Short Act, provides for the involuntary commitment of and treatment of persons who are a danger to themselves or others, or who is gravely disabled. So what does gravely disabled mean? Existing law defines gravely disabled as a condition in which a person, as a result of a mental health disorder, is unable to provide for their basic personal needs for food, clothing, and shelter. In Humboldt County, in 2021, we had 883 was the number of LPS and voluntary holds. It was a little lower in 2022 at 778. As of May, we had 155 people who are conserved under the LPS. So I wanted to pass this off to some of our subject matter experts in the room who answer a few of your board's questions. So I wonder if I could pass this over to Kelly and Paul to talk about what happens now when a person is placed on an LPS hold. What does involuntary treatment look like on that hold? And what's the process of conserving someone under LPS under existing law? So if I could just ask you to, Paul and Kelly, to share a little bit of your expertise with us.
I'm gonna remove for a while your PowerPoint so that we can see on the screen.
So we can see Kelly.
We can't hear Paul, but we could hear Nancy very well.
So I'll go ahead and answer the first two questions. Somebody is typically brought in on a hold. It's really 5150 is an application for a psychiatric assessment in a designated facility. So Semper Virens is our only designated facility in the county. So people are put on hold typically by law enforcement, but we also have a number of staff in our mobile response teams, as well as our crisis teams that are authorized by our director per legislation. We also have some medical doctors in our local emergency departments that are also certified to write holds and to rescind holds. So people have to be trained, they go through our training and they take a short quiz to show some competence around these key elements around writing holds before they're given that designation. That's good for 2 years and have to apply for that moving forward. So any one of those individuals can write a hold for somebody that they suspect is a danger to themselves, others, or gravely disabled. So typically they'll be brought to the emergency department for our mobile response team to deploy and to assess to see if that hold is it looks legitimate. It looks like it is a hold that would meet that criteria. And then we start the process of finding a bed for that person to get treated. So that might be at Semper Virens. We might decide that maybe a shorter stay at the crisis stabilization unit would be more appropriate. We're always trying to look for the treated at the least restrictive environment as possible and safely to do that. Or we might need to look for out of county placement in a hospital. So they will be in the queue either one of those treatment options. We'll continue to assess as their holds are about to expire, just to see if they continue to meet that criteria for that hold. 2275 came into effect in January. So that adds some more due process protections for people waiting in emergency departments. So those folks go in front of an administrative law judge if they're approaching a 72-hour hold expiration, and that administrative law judge makes a determination after hearing the evidence to support or refute the hold to be substantiated, sustained. So as far as treatment goes, people will move from the emergency department to an intensive treatment program like Semper Virens. And from there, we start a treatment plan. We work on discharge right from the start. As soon as they are admitted to the unit, they're assigned a treatment team, which consists of a psychiatrist, a social worker, nurses, mental health workers, a dietitian if needed, and an activity therapist as well. So all of that to work to help reduce the acuity of the individual symptomology and to stabilize folks and to get them back out into the community or home where they should be. So that's the generally the treatment course. And then if somebody needs additional treatment beyond what the first 5150 or the subsequent holds happen, then they need to Kelly can talk about this, but we can go to a 5250, which is a 14-day hold. And then from there, we can do a 5260 or 5270, which is an additional 30-day hold. If they need additional treatment at each juncture of these holds, they can request a writ hearing. So those due processes are in place at every step of the holds. If somebody needs additional treatment beyond these initial holds, then we may work towards temporary conservatorship. So I'll pass it over to Kelly to pick it up from there or to fill in anything important that I may have missed.
Thank you, Jack.
So, once, the treating facility has exhausted the holds that they are able to do and someone remains gravely disabled, and it's important to recognize that grave disability is the only criteria for conservatorship. It's not danger to self, it's not danger to others. If someone remains gravely disabled and they're running out of treatment time, at that point, the treating facility may refer to me for temporary conservatorship. There are also some circumstances where the criminal courts can refer individuals to me for conservatorship investigation as well. So once somebody is deemed to be gravely disabled by the treatment facility, they send a referral to my office. We file that information with the court. We were granted temporary authority without a hearing. And we begin the investigation process. The investigation process is a 30-day process where we identify assets, we identify people that might be a natural support to the patient. We identify people that might be willing to step in as conservator or to provide informal support negating the reason for conservator. So once that happens, the patient then is allowed to challenge the conservatorship in court.
It's a nice eclectic mix of people, so would I?
So once the individual challenges the conservatorship in court, it can be set for hearing. That can be trial by judge or trial by jury. And the legal standard that we have to meet to determine that someone is gravely disabled is beyond a reasonable doubt. So same standard as exists in criminal cases. Once someone is conserved, we identify, and we may have already identified, we identify appropriate treatment facilities in the least restrictive setting, and we place the individual in a treatment program of some type. That could be anywhere from a state hospital to a locked facility to a residential facility, and in some cases, individual facilities or with family. That conservatorship is good for 1 year, and then we have to reevaluate.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm going through my mind, we're getting a lot of important information. And if everybody can hold their questions, or you want to do them at this time? All right, whose hand was up? Was it yours?
But she's.
So my name is Danette Kellerman. I'm a social worker with Conflict Council as well as a board member. My curiosity is if you said the patient can challenge the hold, do they have a legal representative that helps them through that, or do they do it on their own?
From the moment we file our petition with the Superior Court, they are appointed counsel through the Public Defender's Office.
Okay, thank you.
They also have the patient's rights advocate that's available to them at every juncture.
Do they ask for the patient rights?
They can, we've got signs up, she's
Oh,
on the
okay.
unit all the time, she's in the EDs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Melissa.
As we're in the beginning phases of looking at this bill, I have one question. In your opinion, does the definition of gravely disabled need to be expanded? And if it does, why? And if it doesn't, why?
You're asking anyone or all three?
Everybody.
Everybody. Well, let's just go to the three.
I mean, Emmy, Paul, Kelly.
Well, that will be a time for the whole discussion. Okay, if you have a specific question directed to one of the staff who's reporting, that's what I was opening it up for. Is that okay?
Okay.
Good question, good question.
It is a good
Now, that's
question.
the question.
Yeah, I have
That is the question.
Okay,
I have a question
And
for
no 60.
Paul or anybody who wants to weigh in on this. When you mention in these
due process rights and, avenues that are available for someone to contest a hold. How do you address the fact that many of the people have anosognosia, don't understand that they're ill, don't have cognitive capability to navigate that system?
We still offer and we still inform, so we do our best to do that and advocate for people. I mean, we're just here to help in any way that we can.
Okay, any more questions for these three? Then I'm wondering, Nancy, are there other people you want to bring into this presentation? Oh, continue, thank you.
Yeah, so that's what current practice is. That's what the law looks like today.
Okay.
It's not moving. 1 second. Let me try that again. My apologies. Okay, so enter SB 43. Why are we here? So according to the author, our current model is leaving too many people suffering with significant psychotic disorders and incredibly unsafe situations, leading to severe injury, incarceration, homelessness, or death. This bill will help to provide dignity and treatment to those who are the most difficult to reach. NAMI California, who is a co-sponsor of the bill, says that families are often left feeling helpless and hopeless as their loved ones languish in their illness. Updating our age-old LPS Act to provide clarity and get us one step closer to helping our loved ones get the help they need. So how does SB 43 address this challenge? Senate Bill 43 intends to address these concerns by redefining and broadening the definition of gravely disabled so that more people qualify for LPS involuntary holds and conservatorship. This is how it would do it. SB 43 would redefine gravely disabled as a condition in which a person, as a result of a mental health disorder or a substance use disorder, or both, is at substantial risk of serious harm or is currently experiencing serious harm to their physical or mental health. So what is serious harm? The bill defines serious harm as significant deterioration, debilitation, or illness due to the person's failure to meet one or more of the following conditions. Satisfy the need for nourishment. You can see the food, clothing, and shelter from current law reflected in here, but expanded. So now it's satisfy the need for nourishment, be adequately clothed, utilize adequate shelter, attend to necessary personal or medical care, attend to self-protection or personal safety. How does the bill define substantial risk? So SB 43 states that a substantial risk of serious harm to the physical or mental health of the person may be evidenced by the fact that they previously suffered serious harm to their physical or mental health in the historical course of their mental health disorder or their substance use disorder. Their condition is again deteriorating. They are unable to understand their disorder, and their decision-making is impaired due to their lack of insight to their disorder. So just note here, we're not only talking about people with serious mental illness, but also people with substance use disorder or co-occurring disorder. So there's a good list of supporters. Here's a list. It's largely mayors, psychiatrists, NAMI, and cities. And of course, I had mentioned at our last meeting that in my estimation, this is by far the most controversial bill in the health and human services space this year. There's significant opposition, and it generally falls into a few categories. First is really concern around the substance use disorder only diagnosis for involuntary treatment. There's a great deal of peer-reviewed research that shows that involuntary treatment for substance use disorder generally isn't effective for long-term recovery. There's no facilities currently exist for involuntary SUD treatment outside of jails. And that's not really treatment. Increased risk of overdose after release from a locked SUD facility. Hesitancy to seek voluntary treatment if the person thinks that they might be at risk of being placed on an involuntary hold or being indefinitely conserved for their disorder. And there's really no clinical standards to determine when to end an involuntary SUD treatment hold. There's also capacity concerns. Of course, we all know there's a serious lack of mental health beds at all levels of care statewide. There's no beds, there's 0 beds in existence for involuntary SUD treatment. Our hospital partners, they worry about an increased number of people being brought to the emergency room for medical clearance with no facilities to discharge to. As Kelly will attest, there is no state funding for public guardian. There never has been. It's supported largely by the county general fund. And SB 43 doesn't increase funding, services, or workforce. And then 2 more kind of buckets of opposition concerns is your basic liberty concern. This is a very broad expansion of involuntary treatment. There's no definitions in the bill for what it means to be adequately clothed or to attend to personal care. Could leave these things open to pretty broad interpretation. And as disability rights and other groups, Cal Voices point out, if a person's disagreement with a diagnosis or treatment plan can be treated as evidence in court that they lack insight into their disorder, there's really, as they say, no way out of a gravely disabled finding. And of course, there's equity concerns. We know that there is, in the existing system, there is significant inequity in holds and conservatorships, with Latinx Californians more than 150% more likely to be placed on a 5150 hold than white Californians, Black Californians more than 50% more likely to be placed on a 51 hold than white Californians. And we also have the context of just a national history of disproportionately incarcerating BIPOC individuals and LGBT individuals on drug-related crimes. So here's a list of just a shortened list, an abbreviated list of the variety of groups that are standing in opposition to SB 43. I just wanted to offer a little bit of context. One of the questions that was asked, it's almost impossible to answer, so I really took a wild guess. But one of the questions that was forwarded to me is how many people in Humboldt would meet the new definition? And that's just give us your best guess. It's a very hard question to answer, and very smart people have tried, and it's very vague. So I can share with anyone who's interested kind of the data points that we use to take a wild ass guess at this. But we do know that if SUD only diagnoses continue to be included in the bill, we're looking at as much as a 10-fold increase in involuntary treatment. And that's because under current law, individuals with SMI, with serious mental illness, who need involuntary treatment typically comprise less than 1% of the general population. However, lifetime prevalence for substance use disorder is closer to 10%. And we know that young adults have a disproportionate diagnoses with substance use disorder. And we do also know that about a third of our local jail bookings and warrants are SUD related primary offenses. We're getting a few indications from a couple of sources that maybe the SUD only diagnosis might get amended out of the bill as it moves through the assembly. If SUD only diagnoses are removed from the bill, with the expanded definition of serious harm and the inclusions of those anticipated to be at risk of serious harm in the future. There's just wide variation across the state in how law enforcement, hospitals, judicial decisions, involuntary holds and conservatorships could easily double here in Humboldt. So these are my wild guesses as to the numbers. And I'm not sure that they're particularly helpful, but it would be a very significant increase in the number of people who would qualify for involuntary holds and involuntary treatment. Okay, so I just want to put in a little bit more context from questions that I've received. How does this relate to care court? So the Community Assistance Recovery and Empowerment Act will be implemented at Humboldt in October 2024. It is specifically for people with a very specific diagnoses, a severe mental illness who have a diagnosis in the schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. Whereas SB 43 would be for any SMI diagnosis or substance use disorder, and expands the definition of gravely disabled to those at risk of serious harm. And there's, with care court, a wide variety of people can petition the court, including family members. SB 403, like assisted outpatient treatment, limits who can write an LPS hold to those under current law. And how does this relate to assisted outpatient treatment? Well, as I said, care court participants must have a diagnosis under schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. AOT and SB 43 do not specify diagnoses. Care court can also be initiated by family members, service providers, hospitals, law enforcement, a list of authorized parties, whereas AOT is initiated by county behavioral health. And care court and SB 43 are mandatory. SB 43 would be mandatory in all counties, whereas, as we know, counties may opt out of AOT. And lastly, as I've shared with the legislative ad hoc, this is the Board of Supervisors legislative position and their legislative platform for this year.
Nancy, hold on 1 second. Katie, I need to ask you to no longer put up chats, because it's a public comment that interrupts the flow of information. There'll be a time for you to have public comment, all right? Thank you.
So I just wanted to include this bit from the Board of Supervisors legislative platform, basically saying that their position is that efforts to expand or change conservatorships must be accompanied by corresponding funding to support new client placement options and the county public guardian office. So their position is basically opposing expanding conservatorships without new dedicated state funding. And I'll be sure to send this out through Joe after the meeting so that you have our contact information if you would like more information or to talk more about it.
Thank you very much, Nancy.
Good job.
Yes, very helpful. So I want to open up for any other questions to Nancy or the staff, and then we'll open up to our discussion about how we want to proceed. You remember you're staff member. Would you like to say something?
Yeah.
Just FYI, everyone, we can't hear you very well. We heard Nancy very well, but the other folks, maybe if you could speak more clearly into a microphone or something, that would be
I'll
great.
just
Thank
use
you.
my teacher voice. How's that?
Thanks, Katie.
Can you
I
hear me
didn't even
now?
hear you. I couldn't hear what you said.
I can hear okay on Zoom.
Nancy sounds great.
Okay. I mean, I can hear the people in the room, Katie. I can hear them fine. I'm not having audio difficulties for hearing questions from the room.
Nancy, maybe you could repeat the questions that you can hear, and then others are more likely to hear you.
Oh, that's a good
Thank
idea.
you.
Will do.
Oh, okay, this is time for the board members to ask questions of Nancy and the other staff people. So, board, we've thrown a lot of information up here. Debbie.
Could you, Nancy, just do a really quick summary of care court, like 2 sentences? What, or whatever, but I know that it's coming along and will change things a bit, but remind us a little bit more of detail about what it's gonna do.
That's the Thanks for the giggle. Care Court is a very complicated bill. It's a new program for a very specific subgroup of people with serious mental illness that ultimately will provide a care plan and increase services to a very specific subset of people with serious mental illness. It's starting in, I think 6 or 8 counties in this October, and then we'll start that in October 2024. It's a whole new court process. It'll be a pretty big lift.
Nancy, is there a way you can, through Joe, send us an email on more specific information?
Happy to.
Can you repeat the question, please?
I'm sorry, Katie. The question was, tell us about Care Court.
I heard that one because you did a great job already, but was there another question or comment right after you finished talking?
No.
No. Any other questions from board members? Mr. Harris?
Couple, quick one, I think if I got the numbers right, Nancy was saying 10 times the SUD folks might come in if they keep it for SUD only. And I'm wondering if you have any idea how that would be handled. Would all those people be inserted in a facility or just given treatment? First question. Second one, could you talk a little bit more? You give a lot of reasons that people have for opposing SB 43, but could you go a little more detail about what people are worried about happening if it doesn't pass?
Okay, so the first question is, how would we handle people for LPS holds and conservatorships if the SUD portion remains in the bill? And the second question you wanted me to talk more about, can you just say that again?
Kind of in detail, what you feel is accomplished by the bill in terms of, you gave a number of reasons, that the bill could be opposed, people's reasons for opposing it. But could you go in a little more detail about what's happening on the street that is motivating the author and others to support the bill?
Okay, I gotcha. So how would the SUD involuntary treatment be handled? You are asking the question that every county across California is asking. We wouldn't have locked facilities to place people into. I think it's a little overwhelming to think about what that would look like, because as Paul mentioned, other entities can write holds other than county behavioral health, right? I think perhaps the rate of that might be swift, and I don't know how we would handle it. You know what? I'm going to turn that over to our subject matter experts. If anyone else has speculation, Emmy, Paul, do you have any speculation on what would happen if SUD only it becomes a eligible diagnosis for involuntary treatment?
To say a couple comments, and I'll share what I shared with others earlier this month. In other states, what they're doing at this point where they have this requirement is they're ending up incarcerated. So they're ending up in jail or in prison, and it's a very ineffective mechanism. It's not treatment. And the even bigger worry about it is that then when they're released, they're most likely to go back to using, they overdose, and not infrequently they die. So there is no structure in place for this component at this time.
With California substance use laws, do you think that incarceration is likely here?
Well, so I would say what we currently have in place is a really robust, in our area, system of care for outpatient and residential treatment for SUD through our drug medical organized delivery system across several counties. And so that really is the effective and appropriate treatment that we have to offer. There is no, to my knowledge, work being done to create facilities for forced SUD treatment anywhere in the state. And so my guess is, at least initially, it would be something very similar to what other states are doing.
Incarceration.
Thank you. Vernon, you got a comment or question for Amy? Or Nancy?
Nancy still has one answer.
And Tim just also asked if I could expand a little bit on why the author is carrying the bill. And I think others in the room could do that too, right? From the author's perspective, she's really largely looking at homelessness. And this perception that many people who are visibly homeless on the street would benefit from expanding involuntary treatment.
And I'll just also iterate that I think the intent of the bill is very good. Like there's a desire to help people who are suffering, right? We see people in the community who are suffering, and this is the thought that here's a way to capture more people and to help them with their recovery and healing. It's just flawed, in my opinion, in that it includes SUD, which is, I think, not something that will be effectively treated through this pathway, and also may expand in ways that make it challenging. I think our numbers will go up pretty dramatically, and we don't necessarily have resources and facilities to support that. And so it just leaves people struggling a bit.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Good answer.
Thanks for interrupting me about that, because I forgot. Okay. Vernon.
I have a question for Ms. Stark. I believe you may have answered it, but I do not want to misconstrue or misunderstand what you said. If I understood you correctly, and what I hear is most homeless people that are homeless now will benefit from this bill.
I don't think so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply that. That may be a perception in the public. That's certainly not what I meant to imply. And that's not really what the data shows either, in terms of the people who are homeless and the rates of serious mental illness and substance use disorder occurrences within homelessness. I certainly did not mean to imply that all people with hope, that this is going to solve homelessness.
Thank you. That leads me to my primary question, and I apologize. I misunderstood you. How would if this bill is passed, would it allow law enforcement and other entities to arrest people just on staggering alone because they're under the influence in traffic? Because they have a narcotic disorder? What would that look like in the unhoused population?
Sure. Well, this bill doesn't address arrests, right? It's not about the penal code. It's about writing involuntary holds. It wouldn't be necessarily arresting the person. Does that help, Vernon?
Yeah, that's the question. That's the question that I get from people who I think on the street. I get that question 5 or 6 times a day. So I don't really know how to answer that without asking the question.
And if I could just interject here, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm a registered nurse in the ER at St. Joe's, and I see actually a very high frequency of homeless people coming in on involuntary holds that are actively intoxicated, which if you read the literature on the hold, we're not supposed to put intoxicated people on holds, because half the time when they sober up, they later deny the suicidality or homicidal intention. And then we're stuck in this hold and it creates issues. So I think from our perspective, the passing of this bill would probably actually do more harm, because the widening of that substance use disorder would just astronomically increase the number of our holds, which we are already drowning in, without creating any more support or resources, funding for those things. And so I feel like if anything, it might just create a really bad bottleneck in the system. And that's just my input.
Thank you, Catherine. I'll remind everybody, Catherine is a board member. You didn't know.
I'll just circle that back to your question, Vernon, which I think is, so people, homeless people who are walking down the street clearly intoxicated, while they wouldn't necessarily be arrested, they could then be placed on a hold based on SUD only. So that's where this broadens.
That's what they're in fear of.
Correct.
Well,
And
also-
sorry, my purpose of interjecting at that point was because that already happens fairly frequently.
So I want to remind you on the Zoom meeting, you can raise your hand under the reactions thing so that we, without interrupting, and that helps us to know that you're trying to join. Alyssa had a hand up, an actual hand.
Follow-up question to that. I have another question, but follow-up question to that. So, when it comes to, I was in the CIT training, which is about, how to handle, crisis, is crisis intervention training, amongst individuals experiencing serious mental health disorders. And, they're actively trying to not arrest people. But if there's nowhere for people to go, won't they have to put them in jail?
So that's the example I gave is kind of what other states have been doing. I mean, we have not experienced it here yet, but with no facilities, right? No treatment facilities, that's the default that other states have used.
And then my other question, for this section is, with the increase possibly tenfold of individuals being brought in for treatment, which aside from the fact that it's not adequate treatment for their disorder, is that going to cause that everybody else who is seeking treatment to be possibly be put at risk because they can't receive treatment because of all the other people flooding the system in this way?
So you're asking me, but I think it's probably a hospital question because that's the entryway. And I think that they would say they don't have capacity for this number, right? And I think that's what Catherine was speaking to, that they are already bombarded by people that they don't have capacity to serve. Impact on other treatment, I can't really respond to that part of the question.
So a quick.
Okay.
I want to follow up question on this.
Okay, you follow up and then I'll wait and then ask another.
Another follow up.
Okay.
Right now, emergency rooms, if there's an SUD problem, don't send them to Semper because we're not a facility to handle those. So an emergency room would not send them to Semper. Is that correct?
So in the emergency room, when they're placed on hold, and if others call or anyone wants to chime in, I would love it. They're held until they find an appropriate placement at the emergency rooms. Sometimes it's SP, not always. Sometimes, often it's out of county placement. So they would be doing the same with those on an SUD only hold, looking for placement or looking for a default placement.
Thank you. Alyssa, then back to you, Vernon, and then to Tim Ash.
I see to Vernon, I need to wait to ask my question.
Okay.
For this line of questioning to end.
With lived experience, I would like to attest that I have spent, not in this hospital, but in Reading, I've spent 2 weeks in the emergency room waiting on a bed, and I ended up in Placer County after 2 weeks. So there has to be something, to address that before we have to prepare before we enact in law. Me personally, I'm in opposition to this.
Thank you. Catherine, I see your hand, but you ready to go with a follow-up question or ready for Jim?
Well, I wanted to expand and Vernon kind of did that for me with his personal
Okay.
experience, but
Okay.
yeah,
We'll do it in order, okay?
okay.
Okay. Thanks, because the other people have raised their hands. You have a follow-up, or Tim, what do you want to do now, Alyssa?
I want to talk about expanding the definition of grave disability after this topic is done.
Okay.
I just want to say that we're mixing a lot of individuals with, and how the scenario for someone with the SUD only, for co-occurring, and for a SMI only. I think it's really important because some of these answers are going to be different depending on who you're talking about. I guess the main thing I wanted to talk about was like a recurring theme, as far as numbers going up, and I think that's a legitimate issue, but I said this last time, we're not gonna build all these things now. And, you know, on the hope that somewhere along the line they change grave disability, it's gonna, if it happens, the bill, as Nancy said, it may change a little bit because of SUD, valid concerns about it, but if we change the definition of grave disability, then there's gonna be more of a demand on the system to evolve and to provide those facilities. Not saying that it's a magic wand's gonna get waves to happen right away.
So my sense is that we moved into a board discussion as opposed to always asking questions. But in our discussion, we can ask a question as well. Catherine, I see your hand is down. I'm gonna go to Debbie Hartridge.
Kind of to the point of the SUD and the other, the grave disability. Nancy, this bill is still in process, isn't it? I mean, it's not done. So I'm just thinking, this is not a question, but if I'm right about that. At this point in time, if we were to give input, it could be not just we support or we are opposed, we could also, the input could be, since this bill is in progress, here are some issues we see with it, but we support other parts or something, you know.
I see you're nodding your
Is
head.
that correct?
Yeah, yes, Debbie, that is correct. The bill has passed the Senate. It is starting its process in the Assembly. It would have to pass the Assembly by September 1st in order to go to the governor's desk. So you absolutely can have that discussion. It doesn't have to be a straight or oppose. You can share all of your thoughts with the board if you like, with the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. Are we ready to move to discussion? Alyssa, you have another question?
One last question. So, I'm looking at this write-up that Nancy made for us. And it shows current law versus Senate Bill 43. It has the definition of gravely disabled on both sides. It shows on the right side how gravely disabled will be expanded. And as far as I can tell from what everyone is saying, other than the problem with substance use disorder, that the rest of the expansion should actually be appropriate. So my guess is this the correct way to expand grave disability? Do we need to expand grave disability? Why or why not?
And I think we're in the area of discussion. And I think we want to go with a motion and discuss it within the motion. Because Tim, you brought the motion about your letter. How would you like to proceed with that? We can have a
Yeah, it's
discussion
just,
after the
we're
motion.
not quite fraction items. We have two things to deal with.
Well, okay.
Tennessee, Jen.
So this is the time, the agenda, the discussion or the question and answer from a report is over. We will get a chance to discuss it ourselves when we have an action item to do something with it. Yes, Austin.
Thank you, Tim. So Debbie, I really like your point on, what can we do to be preventative? And there was a mentioning of bottleneck of services. And if we're talking about it now, and we have people in the chat that have concerns and opinions that I think we should surface as well, so that we can, hear their perspective on the matter we're talking at hand. So Tom, could you pull the chat? Sorry, Tim. Joe, sorry. Names. Apologies. I just saw the chat. I want to read what's been said here. Can you read that or can I? That would be fantastic, Katie, but unfortunately it is not the reality at this time. SB still requires a full medical clearance for every patient, and that is a large delay in the care for patients. Thank you, Catherine. Katie says SB 43 does not say that any PTS with
Patients.
Patients, yeah.
Yeah, that's an abbreviation for patients, yeah.
Thanks, Katie.
Sure.
can be involuntarily treated, it is only the subset of patients with substance use disorder that are gravely disabled. That's a good point.
Okay, thank you.
So I just wanna say that, like, we have a lot of people on this, like, I see Robert Ward here, you know, I wanna make sure that we're still including the people who are attending virtually.
We
Because
do.
I really,
We do.
yeah, I know we do too. But I also wanna just say that I want us to try to be like solution oriented in addition to addressing the things that are concerning.
That's where we're
Right.
moving next. That's where we're moving.
Right, and we're moving there, right? So I just want to create space for that, and
Yeah,
so
we
that's
will.
why,
That's on
that's
the
why I'm
agenda.
commenting.
That's on the agenda to do
Yeah.
that. I see Alyssa and then Tim.
It says in this definition of Senate Bill 43 that defines gravely disabled as a condition in which a person, as a result of mental health disorder or a substance use disorder or both. So they can actually by this bill pick somebody up purely for substance use disorder without.
But only if they're having symptoms that are causing them to be gravely
Katie?
disabled.
Katie, you're interrupting.
No, she's not, she's adding to the comment, Tim.
No, I'm the moderator of this meeting and we do it in an orderly way. She can't jump in the middle of a conversation. She has a
I
time.
apologize, but that was incorrect. So just I
Thank you,
wanted to
Katie.
make, yeah.
She's contributing.
So
There's a time for that. We'll talk about public comments at another time. Alyssa and then Tim.
if Katie disagrees that that's how the bill works, is there someone present who understands legislation that can explain this bill to me? So I know.
I've read it.
Yeah, I know, but we've all read it and we're disagreeing.
So
Well, I think if you're asking whether patients with substance use disorder can just be
I'm
picked
asking
up,
Nancy Stark or Sharon.
Sure, so it would expand the definition of gravely disabled. So it would be a person with a substance use disorder who is at substantial risk of serious harm or is currently experiencing serious harm to their physical or mental health. So it'd be a substance use disorder plus a substantial risk of serious harm. What some of the opponents will tell you is that a person in recovery may always be at substantial risk of relapse, which could put them at substantial risk of serious harm to their physical or mental health.
Okay, so they don't necessarily have to have any experience with mental health disorder if their physical harm is at risk and they have a substance use disorder.
That's right, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go on with action items and we will, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand again.
One quick one, for Nancy is what she thinks the prospects are for SUD in the bill. But the thing I guess wanted to say is that I think Nancy said it right. You have to not only have a substance use disorder, but you actually have to be gravely disabled by the new definition, which is risk of deterioration, harm. So it's only a subset, and yeah, I don't think that a person who is, an alcoholic, they're going to AA, they've been doing it for 20 years. Yes, you could say they're always at risk of relapsing, but I do not think that's the way this will be interpreted. It just doesn't make any sense.
You have to think about the resources too. I mean, we don't have enough police to deal with crime on a day-to-day basis here locally. I cannot imagine the police going around arresting people with substance abuse disorders.
It's not even arrests.
Or whatever.
We're not gonna
You're
walk
right,
into a
you're right.
CEO's office and say, the guy's been doing great for 20 years and say, hey, we're gonna conserve you. That'll never happen, so. I think we need to be real and it's.
No, it's not gonna be used against a person who's a CEO. It's gonna be used against somebody who doesn't have the power to be able to represent themselves and protect themselves on the street.
Sure, yeah, okay.
Okay, I want to call us to our action items, and we will get a chance to discuss them. We're a deliberative body, and we're gonna make a decision. Yay, nay, hold, okay? So the first is the approval of the minutes.
I
Any-
move approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand, or whatever feels good to you. Okay, we have the election of officers. Last meeting, we approved the slate. That does not eliminate other names from the board to be an officer in the executive committee. It was recommended to me that we go by each position with a person's name. If you really don't want to do that, you can make a motion to do them all. But I do, before we go, say, I urge anyone who's interested in being on the executive board, let us know. Right now, you can put your name in. Because I want to give this open to everyone on the board.
Especially first vice chair.
Oh.
Feel the
Small
love.
jokes.
I feel the love, Tim. Okay, can we remove the chat?
Tim, Debbie has a.
I know, I saw her hand.
Okay.
I'm just trying to clarify it and get the chat stuff off. Let me just say this about that. When I went to a meeting of the California Behavioral Health and Council meeting, I asked them, do chats act like chats here? And they said, yes. Which means that a chat, just like we were chatting around here, disrupting. You know, if somebody gives us a chat and says, here's my email address or how to find something, that's a piece of information. But chats are really like, you know, speaking out of turn. And that's what I've been told. So that's why I'm leaning in that direction. I don't want to oppose chats. I just don't want to have them involved in our discussion. All right. So hearing, did you want to raise your hand? Are you ready to go? All right. All in favor of having Laura Montagna be our chair for this next year, raise your hand or say aye. Aye. Opposed? There's one opposed.
No, I'm agreeing.
I know.
Clarify that.
We still have a quorum.
Yeah, we still have a quorum, even if you left the room.
No, well, that was.
Yeah, you're so much fun to work with. So it was not unanimous, but the board elected Laura Montagna to be our chair. Now, the next position is the vice chair. Goes with a lot of glory, right? And authority. And my name has been presented. Anyone else want that job? Anyone who wants to, you want to vote for me? All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. I wanted another candidate. Okay, then our third person is the second vice chair. And that name is Alyssa. She's agreed to be in that position. And I'll take a motion to vote for her.
I move.
Second.
All in favor of Alyssa having the position again? Yay, thank you.
Or for yourself.
Thank you all.
Absolutely.
Okay. So now we have the letter that was brought by Tim Ash and the ad hoc legislative committee.
Okay, so if everybody remembers, yell out if you don't. We went through a number of other bills that Nancy and Sharon kindly summarized for us, and we picked out of them a number that we thought we should recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they support. And I think we had unanimity that all those 6. Nancy, do you remember?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, in front of me.
I see 3 on the letter.
I thought there was.
You may have had 4 in your recommendation, but the letter has AB 1437 support, FD 45 support,
Oh, it's got the others for you and tracking.
AB 67 and SB 63.
So anyway, I guess I'll start the motion with that we prepare a letter to the Board of Supervisors recommending that they approve AB 665, AB 1437, and SB 45. And I would add to that, my motion would be that we also urge them to support SB 43. And that, and with some language explaining why we do that, and which is basically to help people who are at substantial risk of harm and deterioration. But that we also note there's some concerns about how we will be able to fund and provide beds for anybody that falls under that definition of grave, expanded definition of grave disability. And then we also note a concern as represented to us by staff of mandatory treatment for SUDs, where SUD is the sole diagnosis because it doesn't work well. But anyway, and that the overall reason is that we recognize the need to help these folks and prevent death and other serious harm from occurring, and that we think it's the best first step to actually building and providing services to treat these folks.
So Tim, I'm trying to clarify in my mind, what is the motion and what is the supportive information about it? So that's a,
The motion is to recommend that they support all the 4 bills.
okay.
And that, but we've added some caveats to what concerns have been expressed, and we think they should express. Because it does no good to pass that bill if we can't serve the people.
Right.
So we should be asking for help there. But
Okay, so, yeah, no, I'm just, motions are sometimes very long and wieldy. I'm not sure everybody heard everything about it, but I'm willing to go with that, but I want something written down that we vote on, we know what we're voting. It's kind of a standard way of getting a motion. Is that? You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
what do you want me to do? You want me to write it? You want to take a break?
If
I'll
you
write it.
have it.
I've got it.
Okay,
It's-
I'm willing to accept it. The rest of the board is willing to accept it.
You want me to read it? What I have?
You want to hear it again?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, move to send a letter to the Board of Supervising, urging them to support those 3 bills and the 4th SB 43. The letter would note a concern regarding how we would fund and staff the treatment of how we could use how to fund and staff and how we can provide so we could provide these services in a small rural community. And also note a concern regarding the efficacy of mandatory treatment for SUD diagnoses only. And whether we expand that or not to explain why, I'm not reading that now, but that would be that there's some concern that it doesn't work.
yeah, thank you.
And then finally, that we recognize the need to help these individuals and prevent death and other serious harm from occurring.
All right. Is everybody ready to discuss this and vote on it?
Oh,
Debbie?
we need to discuss
Jessica.
it first, or I was gonna say I'd second it,
Yeah, that's what we need
and
to
then
do
we
first,
need to discuss.
according to the Robert's rule. So they've been moved and seconded, and so now open for discussion. Alyssa, I hope everybody gets a chance to throw in their ideas on Alyssa.
I fully support this bill if substance use disorder is removed from it. Is there a way of adding that, what would you call that?
You can amend it, or it can be a
Amendment.
substitute. It sounds like you want to amend that to put it in those short words. Supporting FBI, SB 43. If it excludes people with SUD.
Yes.
Okay, so then, according to procedures, I need to go back. Would you accept this? And if not, then we need to vote on it. If you all say, yeah, that's fine.
Should we maybe just let everybody talk?
Yeah. Well, but okay,
The answer is yes.
thank you. Yes, Danette.
So I understand the SUD thing, however, I want to make sure that it doesn't involve co-occurring, which is SUD and mental health. Like, are they gonna be blocked because they have SUD and mental health? So we need to be cautious how we put that, because a lot of, you know, I could be just like making up stories, I don't know, but from my experience lately is a lot of times when I'm reaching out to get help for people that plainly look according to protocol, look like they should qualify for things, but there's certain aspects that disqualify, like they'll have 10 things that qualify them, but one thing that you know adds to it that disqualifies them. So like I want to make sure like mental health, like if we're discounting substance abuse, it's not substance abuse and mental or the co-occurring.
Yeah.
SUD only.
Yes.
STD.
Yeah, SUD.
Good point.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
So
that's good clarifying.
it's okay if what, beautiful, absolutely. Yeah, it's not gonna take it out, right? It's not gonna, if we took out substance use disorder, people who have mental health illnesses and substance use disorder, are they currently treated for their mental health?
Hopefully.
Let me just ask you, if something is co-occurring, how does that work? 5150s or general? I know you have some outpatient stuff, but you don't
For the
understand my
one that's
question?
currently, it has to be primary mental health diagnosis. I think what you're asking about is removing the SUD only component. And then that would leave the dual diagnosis, the
Okay.
co-occurring still in there. I
Fantastic.
think that's what you're saying.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, there's a suggestion to amend it to that. Are there other discussion or thoughts on how we proceed with this letter to the Board of Supervisors? I would go around the room. Oh, Leah, you're not on the board.
No, can I say something?
It's a public comment?
I
Yeah,
don't know. Yeah, it's just.
Yes, it
public
is a
comment.
public comment.
It's an idea.
Okay, throw it out, Leah.
One idea is you take the 2 or 3 bills that you approve without any problem in one letter. You write a second letter just on this. Just
Okay.
on this point, just on SB 43.
All right, thank you. That idea has been tossed out. What are your general thoughts about where we are on this?
We should ask for public.
All right, you're right. Thank you very much. We've got this one to an action item and we're in the discussion of it. Invite public comments to come to us. Raise your hand if you'd like a comment on this. You're not public comment. You can't be staff and public comment.
I am.
I want to ask Edith, if I can call you out, you have any comments on this?
I agree that, SUD needs to be removed, but I also agree that co-occurring should remain.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna let Leah speak one more time and after that, I'm cutting her off. Cutting her off.
Okay, so this is a personal story and I try not to get emotional. My grandson, who was diagnosed at 14, off meds at 18, and has gone from Semper Virens several times, homeless, LA County Jail, West Covina Detention Center, Patton State Hospital, LA County Jail, Patton State Hospital, LA County Jail, on the street with nothing, no meds, no nothing, just thrown out. And then Humboldt County Jail, Atascadero State Hospital, Humboldt County Jail, finally conservatorship. The definition of gravely disabled and family involvement needs to be expanded. So that's the part I really want to see changed. Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome, Leah. All right, want to go around, if you want to say something from board member, you okay, Vernon? Oscar, you want to comment on this or share?
I guess I have 2 points. My first point is just moving this along and knowing that it's not perfect and knowing that it's not going to even be necessarily effective. But I have faith that this community and the people who really care about this body of work will work really hard and adamantly to try to make up that difference over time. Right, and I know that we may not all see on the same page right now, but the problem isn't getting any better. And the acknowledgement and the identification of the need, I think to me is the most important. That's my first comment. My second comment is in relationship to my observation. And I do not speak on behalf at all of EA's AOT program. But I know that they are serving 10 individuals and they have the ability to mandate treatment. And out of those 10 individuals, only one of those people has mandated treatment. And that is to make sure that they are supporting themselves and not in danger to themselves. The relationship between them is private. But my initial thought was that all 10 people had mandated treatment. And now I want to clarify that that's not true. So in relationship to substance use disorder, you know, in being a lead care manager and working through enhanced care management and client services, when I speak to my members, I learned that they are often confused and mistrusting and they're scared, right? They're scared of losing their agency, autonomy, their housing. And all that is valid, right? And that speaks again to my point of identifying. How can we identify these things and then have faith and be a supportive board to allow other nonprofits, other agencies to reach out to us and say, we have these ideas. We want to fill the gaps because it's not perfect. And it's not, and I really want to say that I appreciate everyone's whole perspective and their honesty on how you see the matter. The anecdote of your son, of your grandchild, like that's strong. And it's true and it's evident, especially in our community, especially in Eureka and Arcata. So those are my points. And that's my stance. So thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Have you said what you want to say, Danette?
I'm just really grateful that we actually get to hear other people's perspective. I would hope that someday that we could look into like a lot of the trauma in Eureka that causes the mental health that causes substance abuse use so they can self-medicate. But anyways, but I mean, this is a start, right?
Yep.
So I think that we have a lot of trauma in our county that needs to be needs a lot of help.
Yes. Thank you. Debbie.
I'm relieved to see that it seems that we've come to a consensus that we're doing good about as a board. That's my perception. I could be missing something. But I want to say that having observed that treatment works, treatment helps, treatment has given back my family member a life. It was treatment and conservatorship have, I mean, we were talking all kinds of dangerous behaviors. We were talking being in jail. We were talking just all kinds of, suicide attempts, all kinds of things that's why NAMI is so supportive of this kind of thing, because so many of us family members and parents live with situations that last, in my case, about 30 years. I mean, it's a never ending struggle and it's nobody's fault. So, but my point is I think we need to expand the definition of gravely disabled. Treatment works, treatment makes for life changes. public guardian's office is to be commended for all the work they do. So that's my input. I support expanding that definition, getting more treatment sooner. The more psychotic episodes a person has, and I'm talking someone with SMI, the more things kind of, deteriorate in a sense. And it's, I think Dr. Wilson has said this to us, once that happens, it's happened, it's done. Once this, 6 or 8 or 10 or 20 psychotic episodes happen, you're looking at a different picture than you were if only something would have stopped this, at an early stage. So.
Thank you, Disney.
I see Katie has her hand up.
Katie, comment.
Hi, yes, I actually was going to say the exact same thing, which is from a psychiatric standpoint, not treating. The sooner you do treat, the less harm in the long run that person's brain will experience. And that includes the severe substance use disorders and psychotic episodes due to substance use, and psychosis due to schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, and bipolar disorder. So I did write the Board of Supervisors a number of times, and I'll just say here too that it's not just an issue of sort of saying, well, we can't help everyone, so let's don't help the ones that are, the most expensive to help. Unfortunately, the patients that are the most expensive to help are actually the ones that are being harmed by not helping them. So it's not just a neutral thing, it's actually causing harm to patients over time by not treating them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I guess my thoughts are, like NAMI members, I think expanding bravely disabled is important because it doesn't reach out far enough to what we think is gravely disabled. I also, in my experience in learning about SUD issues, I agree, forced treatment does not work. And I would look for expanded services, but not kind of forced services. And so I would vote for this as amended by Alyssa. That's where I would be. All right, I'm ready to go to a vote, and the vote includes the amendment. If you want to take the amendment out, let us know. Otherwise, the motion that you have with the amendment or change that Alyssa brought up, that's what we'll be voting on. You brought all this. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all in favor of the new changed motion to send a letter to the Board of Supervisors, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Did you raise your hand? I didn't.
I didn't. You need to go opposition.
Okay, those opposed, raise your hand.
Vernon Price member says no.
Thank you. I need a lot of help with this job, being the moderator. Thank you, everybody. And so it is ordered. Let's see. We have 30 more minutes, but you can leave right now if you need to, Emily.
Can I do?
I'm supporting whatever you need to do. You have my permission, okay?
Aren't you gonna make her give a report?
Yeah, you have 1 minute. You have a report?
I was just gonna flag that MHSA goes to Board of Supervisors on Tuesday, and thank you all again for the robust conversation last time. That was really supportive of Oliver, and I think a good process, so appreciate that.
Thank you. Board of Supervisors on Tuesday. All right, we have another action item, and that's to approve the medical leave of absence for Allison Thames. It's an unusual thing, but it's in the bylaws to do that. And I've never seen it happen before, but it's very appropriate. They don't lose their place on the board. And they don't have to show up and vote on things. They can stay informed. But they kind of come back from their leave and are back on the board. Any other questions?
I approve.
What? Oh, you approve.
I
All in
second.
favor approved, say aye.
Question.
Yeah.
How long is it?
6 months.
6 months, okay.
Yeah, that's the bylaws. My understanding is the extent of it. All right, all in favor approved, say aye, raise your hand. Okay. So now we come to communications, and that is from the board to share things that maybe weren't on the agenda, but on your heart about the things we did. Vernon?
I had the privilege to take part on the 17th of the California Association of Local Behavioral Health Boards and Commissions. And in that training, it was training or saying how to be an effective board member. And that brings me to the want to give an apology to Deputy Director Jack Brazil for being inappropriate at one of our board meetings. And I just want to say I apologize. I should have been a more effective board member. And I am looking forward to becoming that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vernon. I appreciate that. Great, just, any other communications from board members, things that are on your heart?
Would we want to give Jack an opportunity to respond?
You could, if you wanted to. Jack, you want to say anything?
Thank you, Vernon. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other communication? Leon cut you off. Oh.
Communications.
What, that's from board member? You know that. Debbie, did you want?
Debbie, talk about our peer support.
Puppet hand behind it.
Sorry, Leah. You don't know about it? Not enough.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh. Oh, Edith, you're not on the board either. You guys miss out on a good thing happening in.
I heard somewhere that there's a new, what was it?
It's called peer-to-peer.
Client support,
It's called peer-to-peer. It's not-
community client support,
A community client support group.
not at the
Oh,
Hope Center
okay,
or at the
right.
mental health parking lot.
Yeah, I got.
In the community, like my support group that's in the community.
That's awesome.
I think so. But we should
really talk.
but we can't talk about it.
We're on peer-to-peer.
I'd love to talk to you.
Well, I'm gonna, but
I appreciate it.
we'll talk after the meeting.
Okay.
The details.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Hey, Danette, you got some communications?
I just want to share that for those that are interested, September 9th is the Recovery Happens annual picnic. And it is for all people in recovery, no matter what they're recovering from. And it's at Sequoia Park. We're gonna be, if you want to be involved in it, please send me an email and I'll get you on the list of, we have a planning meeting once a month going on right now, so. We'll have a chili cook-off, we'll have a barbecue, everything's free, we'll have t-shirts available. And hopefully we can get a lot of entities to come and educate our community on recovery stuff.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
The love t-shirt, does that say love on it?
No, it doesn't yet,
Okay,
but it's a great design this year.
okay, thanks to that.
But if you want, I'll put one on for you.
Yeah, but I need a heart. Other communications? Yes, lady.
Who?
You, lady.
Lady.
Speaking of tabling, if anybody knows of any tabling events, NAMI tables when we can go, so that's why. Yeah, so that's good to know, and,
Do you have my email?
I think I've got your email, so.
The membership has phone numbers and emails on it, and if you don't have it, then you can ask Joe for any updates, so we can all communicate with each other. Okay, thank you, Danette. I think that is a personal invitation.
Absolutely.
Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Katie said, it's coming up, the webinar later this afternoon. I may be wrong about this, Katie, but I believe they're gonna not only be talking about nuisance proposal for modification of MHSA funding, but also for other mental health funding. So they're talking about $4 billion. So basically, I don't know where it comes from, but it's not all MHSA. And
That's correct.
yeah, and I don't know Nancy not still on, she might know about it more than I do. And the other thing is, I just wonder if anybody could answer any questions about, answer a question about the client support, new client support meetings will be held in the community.
Oh, one. I can talk.
That was really.
I just wonder if you could tell us about this. client
So for a long time, I've wanted a group for our loved ones, our family members who with issues, or anybody in the community that has issues. Because I get calls, oh, I'm depressed, is there a group? Oh, I have bipolar disorder, is there a group? So NAMI California, NAMI National offers 2 programs for folks with mental health challenges. One is called NAMI Connections, and one is called peer-to-peer. And we had a volunteer come into our county from Santa Cruz that's a trained peer-to-peer facilitator. Peer-to-peer is similar to family-to-family, which is more of an educational kind of component. NAMI Connections is like the NAMI support groups that I do, but it's for clients. So one of my ideas is to have family members bring their family members, if they want to come, to a group just for them, while the family members meet as family members. And so we're working on getting, if Betty Garfield is working out maybe to shift her hours to it, because we need to do it after 5 o'clock. People with mental health challenges work, people forget that, so I want it later in the day. So anyway, Betty's working on maybe shifting her hours on a Monday, and Betty and Alyssa will be trained, and then we will start this community support group every week, because that's what successful is every week, I think. Does that help? Is that good?
Yeah.
And Edith wanted to add.
The peer-to-peer, it has to be started first, because one of the women is trained for peer-to-peer, and the other one has agreed to become trained. So we'll start peer-to-peer first, and then we'll add the connections. And connections is led by a client as well.
Okay,
Has to be client.
thank you, Edith, for
And they're both
clarification.
NAMI, they're both NAMI groups.
Do you have more communication? Sharon, I see your hand up. This is, okay, why don't you speak, and then we need to go back to communications. Go for it, Sharon.
Okay, I just wanted to reply to what Tim had asked about. The presentation this afternoon is going to be about proposed changes to MHSA. They finally came out with the language. Governor Newsom has talked about it, but we didn't have details. So they finally come out with some language on that. And there's a second component. There is also a bond measure that they're going to be putting onto the March 2024 primary ballot, where they're asking for $4.68 billion in bonds for behavioral health infrastructure. And then those 2 things, the policy changes and the bond measures, are not tied together. So that's possible that the public could vote to change MSHA drastically and not approve the bond, perhaps, or vice versa, however it goes. But those 2 things are what they're going to be discussing in their webinar today. And then we will be bringing more information back as we get more details on the language and interpretation. There's going to be a lot more discussion to come on this.
Thank you, Sharon. I think I saw a hand here. Oh, Alyssa, you
Can we ask for further updates on that?
mean in the next meeting?
Yeah.
So I see a
You
thumbs
okay
up.
with that?
Sharon, I'm gonna talk to the executive committee, but to have ongoing reports about this new change that you talked about, okay? All right. Okay, I'm writing down a note. Mr. Ash, I'm
Yeah,
gonna write.
I just wanted to say, after the discussion, the whole concept of chicken before the egg to me. We changed the definition and provide the services, figure out how to do that later or vice versa. That, looked at the grand jury report and they talked about staffing issues, people overwork, vacancies, burnout. And I just want to say, at least from my perspective, that I understand that's 100% real. And for any staff that are listening, I think we get that. So, I mean, I think now it's just a matter of how do you do that? I mean, obviously need the money, but there's the whole training thing. And I know the Blue Ribbon Committee that met a couple of years ago looked at compensation and things like telecommuting, which turned out to be to happen, but I don't know, just I know I appreciate the staff and all that they do. And I know sometimes we ask for more, but the only reason we do that is because our loved ones really are at risk, and we just ask you for people to try to help us help them.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have to leave. I'm in the hospital.
Okay, go for it. Nothing important except for me.
There's a Oliver, when he presented last month, he shared there's an innovation section with funding, right? So I encourage the board and staff, right, to consider what that could be filled with, right? I personally, and trying to integrate transportation and you know, food. I work for North Coast Growers Association. I'm on the board of Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. So I'm trying to find out, is there anything that we can do to get people access to better food? Is there anything we can do to get people access to transportation? Because when your mental health is affected and you lose your license and, you know, life goes on, it would be great to be a community to make up the difference and to let people still get to their appointments, right? To have some level of support.
Thank you.
So I'm working on a potential ad hoc committee to propose some of that.
Great. Connie, on the agenda of report or two to make?
I guess. So for one thing, I thought Navigation Center would be at the board, the lease would be going to the board on Tuesday, the 27th. It's been extended to the 11th of July, and we are still working out the insurance. There's a lot of questions from the property owner's insurance carrier about services being provided there. And so I've had to reach out to a couple of different counties to get information about the insurance that's provided for navigation center type facilities. And so we look forward to that happening. I mean, we're like this close to the lease being signed and going to the board for approval.
That's good news.
Looking forward to that, yes.
I made a note at our executive committee, for you to say some things, and maybe at the next one, we can have up to you, a larger presentation for new people who don't know it, or how close we are.
We can do another little presentation just about what the navigation center is.
Yes.
What really is gonna happen is the lease is gonna be signed, and then we're gonna start community meetings and have a lot more discussion about what services, not just county services, but other services that could be provided at the navigation center. So that's the plan. And we don't want to start the community meetings until we get that lease going, so the property owner gets his stuff going, so that we're simultaneously working on the program aspect of the work. So really looking forward to this. I don't know how much you know, but I've been working on this for years, and so for me to get to this place is pretty exciting. So
It is. I remember the presentation. I thought everybody almost wanted to stand there and applaud.
right,
You know.
yeah, it's gonna be really great. I hope it's not the answer to all of the problems that we have,
Right.
and it will help engage folks to, you know, just do more and the community, having the community being able to be a part of that is really important. We did a presentation, we did one meeting that was mandatory for the property owners around where the facility will be. And you know, the person from Chamber of Commerce came and said, businesses want to know what we can do to help, right? Because everyone knows that this is important for our community, so.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. The only other thing that I would say is I wanted to say, Leah, thank you so much for always showing up
Thanks.
for behavioral health. The town hall, just your input in the town hall, I think really makes a difference in our community, and people hear you, and you know, the things that we all talk about here in this room, most community members don't hear. You know, your perspective about how important it is, and your desperation as a family member to help those with behavioral health issues. So I just want to thank you, and Tim too. I know SB 43 is like we're all sitting here saying, no, we shouldn't do it, we shouldn't do it, but it isn't that we shouldn't do it. We know that we need to do more, right? And when we have the staffing capacity issues that we have, and so there's a lot of worries around that. Public guardians not funded, all those things, but we absolutely hear, and I hear many times the desperation from the family members.
Well, thank you,
So-
Connie. That was nice.
Yeah. thank you.
Connie, did you tell us already where the proposed site of the navigation center is, or is that still?
Right across from Freeman.
Oh,
Perfect,
Perfect.
perfect location. Yeah,
Yeah, that's why we need another presentation that updates on Alyssa.
Sure. When it's time to do the community meetings, and would it be okay, if you sent that out to the board? I would really love to participate.
sure.
Good, yeah. Thank you. So Jack, I'm assuming you don't have much of an AOT update, or do you?
Just, yeah, I think, not too much, you know, AOT continues to move forward with EA, and we have participants in varying degrees of either outreach or actually engaging in services. And so, you know, it's going well. I think we've had a couple of, you know, there's not a lot of participants in there, but the ones that we have, you know, we've seen some pretty profound changes, at least in a couple of them that I'm enthused about. So
When will it's a prototype, and when will it be evaluated?
I think we were looking at about 6 months from the time we had gone to the board last time, which I think was in April, maybe. So sometime, hopefully in the fall, we'll have additional kind of evaluation metrics to share.
Okay, thank you. Let us know as that goes on.
Yeah.
Anything else from committees? So then, we're doing fine with time, but if we can end early, that would be cool. I just have, couple of things. One of them was to follow up with Connie, and hopefully we can put on the agenda, maybe a 10-minute update explanation of the navigation center. If you're not ready to do that, fine, we can put it off, but if we can do that in July meeting, are you gonna be on vacation?
What is the July meeting? Today.
It's the,
I don't have a vacation plan yet, sorry.
you're not going to Italy for a month. All right,
July 27th, right?
yeah, thank you. Also wanted to say that executive committee has been working on a way to present information for the board about significant crisis events, mental health crisis events, without getting into personal data or staff data or HIPAA issues. And Mark Lammers has done this before, called a hypothetical. If this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And he's done like 2 or 3 of those. And Paul, you're in the process of connecting with him to see when he can do that. Do you remember saying you would? Okay. Thanks. So that's something I think is important. We've talked about it and I've been working on it. Hopefully this will come to pass. The August, we don't have a meeting, still that Connie can go on vacation. And, we're looking forward, I think we're talking about having kind of a special separate meeting for the board on educational information about the bylaws, procedures, everything, that, and any questions people have about how we operate.
Are you talking about a retreat?
Yes, a retreat, not a lengthy retreat. Unless you bring a lot of food.
We can do a beach picnic.
A beach picnic, cool.
So I have a question for Paul or Jack. I'm not sure who gets it. But I was talking to somebody over at Crestwood the other day, and I was talking to them a little bit about things that they may need to enhance what they are currently doing. It's up and above. And one of the things they mentioned wasn't really what I was thinking, but they were saying that once in the past, they used to get speakers once in a while, and that there wasn't a lot of co-occurring substance use education training that was happening there. And I was just wondering, is that ever something, have we done that in the past where just not necessarily one-on-one counseling, but just talks for those people that can engage and listen? Is that a possibility?
You're talking about like an educational group or more of like a community presentation?
I mean, it could just not therapy, just either a group or just a talk. I know NAMI conferences, they have Ask the Doc, and they'll bring some guy who's an expert on bipolar disorder. They bring an individual, and they'll kind of talk a little bit about the basics and then open up the Q&A. And it's probably one of the most popular things that happens at those conferences. I think it would be something like that. I don't know how many questions you get, but at least kind of getting some ideas out there about the mechanics of addiction and just substance use. How, it kind of made sense. That's what they were asking for. I said, I don't know. It seems to make sense, because if you have people available for an hour or two, it might, kind of have some leverage over there, because they're kind of captive audience, and might be interested.
Paul, do you have a response to that?
Well, yeah, Tim, quite a while back, I would go in and do recovery groups, and Stan was there. And Crestwood was always open to me going in. I think I went in once a week and I played music. We had a good time. I think they're really open to even community groups coming in and maybe even doing things, but I think you just have to contact Crestwood and have somebody interested.
No, I talked to them. They asked for it.
I
it
used to do it all the time.
It wasn't there as one staff.
Okay, we're talking about what could happen, right?
Yeah, what could happen?
Yeah,
We're
So
talking
what
about,
happened?
is that so? Could you provide somebody to go talk to them for an
I
hour?
mean, right now, I'm strapped for key staff and key programs, and it's hard to be able to produce somebody to be able to do that on a regular basis. And given the demands of what we're asked to do continuously in the community, I think that's tough for us to commit to it right now.
But
I mean,
now in the future,
for me and my program.
it's not prohibitive, it just wouldn't work now
Right,
because of staffing.
yeah.
So are you talking about someone going in there and talking about substance use issues?
Yeah, it could be,
Specifically, Tim, I mean, couldn't it be somebody from Waterfront
it
Recovery?
could be, so I thought about.
Oh, yeah, I think community groups.
Maybe, I mean, that might be worth.
so part of my question is that NAMI has tried to do this, and sometimes we don't have enough staff. But would this be something we could work with the county, helping to set it up, and NAMI can find a person to come? Can we?
Yeah.
Liam, no, not you, Debbie.
Say nothing.
So, is there a partnership we could do on that with the county?
Down the road. I think
County's
that's
always
the
open to partner with our community stakeholders and the community at large. It's just, it's right now, for me and my program, it's really, it's really tough to make a commitment right now. Maybe we can talk about that in the fall. If you want to use any of my staff about that, we might be in a different place.
Leah, do you have one more thing?
Well,
to
we
say?
have a NAMI family support group member that wants to do a barbecue at Crestwood. We funded that barbecue. But I'm thinking, Debbie, on our eatery, we should put out, we have a lot of professional people, that maybe could go in and just maybe do knitting or, I don't know, anything, bingo, whatever. So I think we should ask our NAMI group if a family member wants to go in and do some enrichment activities. We have yoga teachers and we have all kinds of. So anyway, just a thought.
That was the discussion. I said, how about music, and they said, yeah, we used to. There's a
Joe and
lot of
Stan,
music.
my son Joe and Stan, they used to go play music all the time over there. Yeah.
They used to have birth control speakers too, from Planned Parenthood.
They did.
Yes, they did. I know, Stan.
You know that, huh?
All right,
You
everybody.
can get like CERT teams maybe, CERT to go and present. They have a lot of stuff.
All right, everybody. We've talked a lot.
I think it's important to get the community over there.
It is, I'm gonna vote to be on the board,
Oh, good.
to the vice chair. And, all right, everybody, I'm getting sillier and sillier, so with anything else to say?
Yeah, I have one final. thing to
No.
say. I think- no, you-
Rough meeting.
I want to thank you, Mr. Doty. See, he just shut up.
You did a great
I want
job.
to thank you for a couple of years of agreeing to be the chair and running these meetings.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. This is his last meeting
Really?
as a chair.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, you're coming back.
We just elected.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the
Yeah,
vice chair.
he's
Yeah,
the vice
first
chair.
was chair.
I'll be the vice chair. I will
Chair.
sit next to
Where's the
Laura.
flowers?
Yeah, I need
Darn.
flowers. I haven't started yet.
Darn.
But thank you, Mr. Ash. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.
It's okay.
No, it's okay. Good.
Good, thank you for being.
I gotta go get my son, in the bedroom, with my granddaughter, it wants to rabbit, let it run around. Joseph, I go, "Oh, no." The problem is the kid had to go home, but I said, I don't.